The morning sun filtered through the dusty windows of Rosie's diner, casting long shadows across the worn linoleum floor. It was Mother's Day, and the small restaurant buzzed with the cheerful chatter of families celebrating together. Children clutched handmade cards while fathers helped cut pancakes into bite-sized pieces. Mothers smiled warmly as they received small gifts wrapped in colorful paper. In the far corner, away from the joyful chaos, sat a young woman who seemed completely out of place. Isabella wore an expensive black dress that probably cost more than most people made in a month. Her designer handbag rested beside her on the cracked vinyl booth seat, and her perfectly manicured fingers traced patterns on the scratched table surface. Despite being surrounded by celebration, she looked utterly alone. Isabella had been coming to this diner for 3 weeks now, not because the food was exceptional or because she lived nearby, but because it was the one place where nobody knew who she was. Nobody whispered about her famous father or asked for favors or business connections. Here she was just another customer, and that anonymity felt like freedom. She watched a little girl at a nearby table present her mother with a construction paper flower. The mother's face lit up as if she had received the most precious diamond in the world. The simple joy in that moment made Isabella's chest tighten with a familiar ache. She could barely remember giving her own mother handmade gifts, but she knew those memories existed somewhere deep in her heart, buried under years of loss and loneliness. Her mother had died in a car accident when Isabella was just 12 years old. One moment they were planning a shopping trip for Isabella's first school dance, and the next moment, her world had shattered completely. Her father, Richard, had thrown himself into his business empire, working 18-hour days as if staying busy could somehow erase the pain. Isabella had been left to navigate her grief mostly alone, raised by a series of nannies and housekeepers who were kind but temporary. Now at 28, Isabella had everything money could buy but nothing money couldn't buy. She lived in a mansion that felt like a museum, drove cars worth more than most homes, and wore clothes that appeared in fashion magazines. Yet she spent most holidays alone, eating takeout in her enormous kitchen, while her father attended business meetings in different time zones. As she sipped her coffee, Isabella noticed the woman working behind the counter. The waitress moved with practiced efficiency, balancing multiple plates on her arms while managing to smile at every customer. She looked to be in her late 40s with graying hair pulled back in a neat bun and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she laughed. Her uniform was clean but showed signs of countless washings, and comfortable shoes suggested she spent long hours on her feet. The waitress, whose name tag read Maria, seemed to remember exactly how each regular customer liked their coffee and eggs. She called the elderly man in booth 3 honey and asked about his grandson's baseball games. She complimented a teenage girl on her new haircut and slipped an extra cookie onto a young boy's plate when his mother wasn't looking. But Isabella noticed something else about Maria, something that others might miss. During quiet moments between customers when Maria thought nobody was watching, her smile would fade slightly. She would touch the small photo tucked into her apron pocket, and her eyes would grow distant with longing. It was a look Isabella recognized because she saw it in her own mirror every morning. As the breakfast rush continued, Isabella overheard Maria talking to another waitress during a brief lull. They stood near the coffee station, refilling sugar dispensers while they spoke in hushed tones. "First Mother's Day without both kids home," Maria said, her voice carrying a note of sadness. "Miguel called from California this morning, but you know how it is with the 3-hour time difference. Sophia's somewhere in Germany with her unit, and I won't hear from her until tonight if I'm lucky." The other waitress nodded sympathetically. "It's hard when they grow up and move away. But you raised them right, Maria. They're out there making you proud." Maria managed a small smile. "I know. Miguel's doing so well in his engineering program, and Sophia's helping save lives overseas. I should be happy, and I am, but holidays just feel different when the house is empty." Isabella felt her heart squeeze with recognition. She understood that particular brand of loneliness, the kind that comes from loving people who can't be with you, whether by choice or circumstance. Her situation was different, but the feeling was remarkably similar. Throughout the morning, Isabella watched Maria work with genuine care for everyone around her. When a toddler spilled juice across the table, Maria cleaned it up without any sign of frustration, even making the child giggle by pretending the spill looked like a dinosaur. When an elderly woman struggled to read the menu, Maria patiently described each dish and made gentle suggestions based on dietary restrictions she somehow remembered from previous visits. Maria treated every customer like family, creating warmth and comfort in a simple diner that transformed ordinary meals into meaningful experiences. She was the kind of person who made others feel seen and valued. The kind of person Isabella's mother had been before the accident changed everything. As Isabella observed Maria's interactions, she began to see something beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Here was a woman who spent her days nurturing others while her own children were far away, unable to celebrate Mother's Day with her. Maria gave so much love to strangers while missing the people she loved most. The morning grew busier as more families arrived for late breakfast or early lunch. Isabella watched mothers receive flowers, cards, and small gifts from their children. She saw husbands surprising wives with breakfast in bed delivered to their table. The air was filled with laughter, conversation, and the general happiness that comes with celebrating someone special. But through it all, Isabella kept returning her attention to Maria, who continued working with dedication and kindness despite her own quiet sadness. There was something about this woman that reminded Isabella of her own mother's gentle spirit, the way she had made everyone feel welcome in their home, the way she had found joy in taking care of others. As Isabella finished her coffee and prepared to leave, an idea began forming in her mind. It was simple but felt important in a way she couldn't fully explain. She had spent years feeling disconnected from the world around her, isolated by wealth and loss in equal measure. But sitting in this humble diner, watching Maria care for strangers with the same love she probably showered on her absent children, Isabella felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. She felt inspired to do something kind, not because she had to or because it would benefit her somehow, but simply because someone deserved kindness. For the first time in months, Isabella had an opportunity to make someone else's day a little brighter, and the possibility filled her with nervous excitement. Standing up slowly, Isabella gathered her purse and took one last look around the diner. The scene was exactly the same as when she had arrived, families celebrating, children laughing, mothers being honored. But something inside Isabella had shifted. She had found her purpose for the day, and it felt like the most important thing she had done in years. Walking toward the door, Isabella made a decision that would change not just Maria's Mother's Day, but both their lives in ways neither woman could possibly imagine. Isabella stepped out of Rosie's diner into the warm spring afternoon, her mind racing with the idea that had taken hold. The busy street buzzed with Mother's Day activity. People walked by carrying bouquets of flowers, boxes of chocolates, and wrapped gifts. She watched families heading to restaurants for special lunches, children skipping alongside parents who carried their handmade presents with pride. For a moment, Isabella hesitated. She wasn't used to spontaneous acts of kindness. Her world was usually planned months in advance, with assistants scheduling every meeting and social obligation. Random gestures didn't exist in her carefully controlled life. But something about Maria had touched a part of her heart that had been sleeping. For years, she pulled out her phone and searched for flower shops nearby. The first few results showed expensive florists that catered to wealthy clients like herself, the kind of places that charged hundreds of dollars for arrangements that looked perfect but felt cold. Those weren't right for what she had in mind. She wanted something different, something that felt real and warm. Walking down the street, Isabella passed a small corner flower shop she had never noticed before, despite driving this route for weeks. The storefront was modest, with buckets of fresh flowers arranged on the sidewalk. Bright yellow daffodils, purple tulips, and white daisies created a cheerful display that made passers-by smile as they walked by. The shop owner, an elderly man, with soil under his fingernails and genuine warmth in his eyes, looked up as Isabella entered. The space was small but filled with the sweet scent of fresh blooms. Unlike the sterile perfection of high-end florists, this place felt alive and welcoming. "Happy Mother's Day," the man said with a friendly smile. "Looking for something special? For your mom?" Isabella paused, unsure how to explain. Actually, it's for someone else. Someone who deserves to feel appreciated today. The man's expression softened with understanding. Ah, those are often the most meaningful gifts. What kind of person are we honoring? Isabella thought about Maria, picturing her tired hands and kind eyes, the way she made everyone feel welcome, despite her own sadness. Someone who takes care of everyone around her, someone who works hard and has a big heart, someone whose own children can't be with her today. The flower shop owner nodded knowingly. I have just the thing. He led Isabella to a refrigerated case filled with beautiful arrangements. These white roses just came in this morning. They're classic and elegant, but see how I've mixed them with baby's breath? It softens them, makes them feel more personal and heartfelt. Isabella examined the bouquet he showed her. The white roses were perfect, neither too flashy nor too simple. The baby's breath added a delicate touch that reminded her somehow of the kind of flowers her mother used to love. The arrangement was wrapped in soft paper and tied with a cream-colored silk ribbon. It's perfect, she said softly. But could you make it a little larger? I want it to feel really special. The man smiled and began selecting additional roses from his display. You know, I've been running this shop for 35 years. I've seen all kinds of people buying flowers for all kinds of reasons. But the ones that mean the most aren't always for family members or romantic partners. Sometimes the most beautiful gestures happen between strangers. As he worked, carefully arranging each flower, Isabella felt her nervousness growing. She had given expensive gifts before, usually chosen by assistants and delivered by staff. But she had never personally handed someone flowers, never looked into their eyes while offering a gesture of kindness. The intimacy of it felt both exciting and terrifying. My wife used to say, the shop owner continued as he adjusted the ribbon, that flowers are like little messengers. They carry feelings that are sometimes too big for words. This bouquet is going to carry a lot of love today. Isabella paid for the flowers, leaving a generous tip that made the old man's eyes widen with surprise and gratitude. Holding the bouquet carefully, she walked back toward the diner. Each step felt significant, as if she was walking toward something that would change her in ways she couldn't yet understand. The flowers were heavier than she expected, not just in weight, but in meaning. She found herself thinking about her mother, remembering the joy on her face when Isabella had brought her dandelions from the backyard when she was 5 years old. Her mother had put those weeds in her finest crystal vase and displayed them on the dining room table, like they were the most precious flowers in the world. As Isabella approached Rosie's diner, she could see through the windows that the lunch rush had begun. Maria was moving between tables with the same graceful efficiency, carrying plates and refilling drinks while maintaining conversations with customers who clearly adored her. The sight of Maria working so hard while missing her own children made Isabella's resolve stronger. She stood outside the diner for several minutes, holding the flowers and trying to gather courage. People walking by smiled at her, assuming she was on her way to celebrate Mother's Day with family. If only they knew how long it had been since she had felt connected to anyone in a meaningful way. Isabella had attended countless charity galas where she wrote large checks and posed for photos. But those gestures felt hollow compared to this moment. This was personal. This was real. This was her choice, not something expected of her because of her last name or bank account. Taking a deep breath, Isabella pushed open the diner door. The familiar sounds of clinking dishes and friendly conversation washed over her. She clutched the flowers tighter, suddenly aware of how different she looked from the regular customers. Her expensive clothes and perfect appearance seemed almost ridiculous in this humble setting. Several customers glanced her way, probably wondering why someone dressed like her was carrying flowers into a neighborhood diner. But Isabella barely noticed their looks. Her attention was focused entirely on Maria, who was busy taking an order at a table near the kitchen. Isabella waited patiently, not wanting to interrupt Maria's work. She watched as Maria recommended the daily special to an elderly couple, genuinely caring about helping them choose something they would enjoy. When a child at another table dropped his crayon, Maria picked it up with a smile and helped him color his placement. Every gesture confirmed Isabella's instinct that Maria was exactly the kind of person who deserved recognition on Mother's Day. She was a mother figure to everyone who entered the diner, creating a sense of home and belonging for people who might not have either. Finally, Maria finished with her customers and began clearing a nearby table. Isabella approached slowly, her heart pounding with anticipation and nervousness. She had rehearsed what she might say, but now that the moment was here, all her planned words seemed inadequate. Maria looked up as Isabella approached, probably expecting her to request a table or ask about the menu. Instead, she saw a beautifully dressed young woman holding a stunning bouquet of white roses, looking nervous but determined. The moment stretched between them, filled with possibility and the kind of human connection that transcends social boundaries. Isabella took one more breath, knowing that whatever happened next would matter more than any business deal or social event she had ever attended. This simple act of giving flowers to a hard-working waitress was about to become something much more significant than either woman could have imagined. Maria looked up from wiping down the table, her cloth pausing mid-motion as she noticed the elegant young woman standing beside her. The beautiful bouquet of white roses seemed almost magical in the fluorescent lighting of the diner, completely out of place yet somehow perfect at the same time. Maria's first thought was that Isabella must be looking for directions or perhaps waiting for someone important. "Can I help you with something, dear?" Maria asked, her voice carrying the same warmth she offered to every customer. She straightened up, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear with her free hand. Isabella's carefully rehearsed words suddenly vanished from her mind. Standing face to face with Maria, seeing the genuine kindness in her eyes up close, made everything feel more real and important than she had imagined. The flowers felt heavy in her hands, not from their weight, but from the meaning she hoped they would carry. "These are for you," Isabella said softly, extending the bouquet toward Maria. "Happy Mother's Day." Maria's eyes widened in complete shock. She looked from Isabella's face to the stunning flowers and back again, as if trying to make sense of what was happening. "For me, but I don't understand. Do we know each other?" The confusion in Maria's voice was mixed with something else, a vulnerability that came from being caught completely off guard by unexpected kindness. Her hands remained at her sides, not quite ready to accept something that seemed too good to be true. Isabella shook her head gently. "We don't know each other, not really. I've been coming here for a few weeks and I've watched you take care of everyone who walks through that door. Today, someone should take care of you." Other customers in the diner had begun to notice the unusual scene unfolding. Conversations grew quieter as people turned to watch the well-dressed young woman offering flowers to their beloved waitress. There was something captivating about the moment that made everyone want to see what would happen next. Maria's hands trembled slightly as she finally reached out to accept the bouquet. The roses were even more beautiful up close, their petals soft and perfect, their fragrance delicate and sweet. She had received flowers before, but never from a stranger, never without any expectation or special occasion beyond simple human kindness. "But why?" Maria whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Why would you do this for someone you don't even know?" Isabella took a small step closer, lowering her voice so their conversation felt more private despite the audience around them. "Because I lost my mother when I was young," she began, her own voice wavering with emotion she rarely allowed herself to show. "And watching you today, seeing how you care for everyone like they're your own family, it reminds me of her." Maria's eyes immediately filled with tears. She clutched the flowers closer to her chest, breathing in their scent as if trying to memorize everything about this unexpected moment. "I see how you make everyone feel welcome," Isabella continued, the words flowing more naturally now that she had started. "The way you remember how people like their coffee, the way you slip extra cookies to children when their parents aren't looking, the way you ask about people's grandchildren and new jobs. You mother everyone who comes in here." A tear rolled down Maria's cheek as she nodded, recognizing the truth in Isabella's words. She had never really thought about her work that way, but she did feel protective and caring toward her regular customers. They had become like an extended family over the years. My children are so far away today, Maria said quietly, her voice breaking slightly. Miguel is studying in California, and my daughter Sophia is deployed overseas. This is the first Mother's Day I've spent without either of them nearby. Isabella felt her heart squeeze with understanding. Distance doesn't mean they love you any less, and it doesn't mean you're any less of a mother. I can see it in everything you do here. The diner had grown remarkably quiet as other patrons strained to hear the conversation. There was something beautiful happening that nobody wanted to interrupt with unnecessary noise. Even the cook had stepped out from the kitchen, drawn by the unusual stillness in the usually bustling restaurant. Maria looked down at the flowers again, shaking her head in wonder. In 30 years of waitressing, nothing like this has ever happened to me. People are usually in such a hurry, focused on their own problems and families. I never expected that someone would notice. Isabella finished gently. Well, someone did. Someone sees how hard you work and how much love you put into everything you do. An elderly man at a nearby table began clapping slowly. Soon, other customers joined in, creating a gentle round of applause for Maria, who looked around the diner in amazement. These people she served every day were celebrating her, and it was all because a stranger had taken time to acknowledge her worth. Maria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, still holding the flowers carefully. You remind me of my Sophia, she said to Isabella. She's about your age and she has the same kind heart. She's always been the one to notice when people need help, even when she was little. Isabella smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't experienced in years. Being compared to someone's beloved daughter felt like the highest compliment she had ever received. Can I ask your name? Maria said, her voice steadier now, but still full of emotion. Isabella. And you're Maria. I've heard the other staff call you that. Maria laughed through her tears. Yes, I'm Maria. And Isabella, this is the most beautiful thing anyone has done for me in longer than I can remember. These flowers are gorgeous, but what you said, knowing that someone sees me as more than just the woman who brings coffee and takes orders, that means everything. Isabella felt tears forming in her own eyes. She hadn't expected this simple gesture to affect her so deeply, but standing here with Maria, sharing this moment of genuine human connection, felt more meaningful than anything she had experienced in years. I want to show you something, Maria said suddenly, reaching into her apron pocket. She pulled out her phone and showed Isabella the photo she kept there, a picture of a young man in a college sweatshirt and a young woman in military uniform. These are my babies, Miguel and Sophia. They're both so far from home, but they're making me proud every day. Isabella looked at the photo, seeing the love and pride in Maria's expression as she talked about her children. They're beautiful, and they're lucky to have a mother who loves them so much. I'm going to send them a picture of these flowers, Maria said, her voice filled with excitement. I want them to know that their mama was thought of today, that someone took time to make Mother's Day special for me even though they couldn't be here. As Maria carefully arranged the flowers in her arms for the photo, Isabella realized that this moment had become as special for her as it was for Maria. For the first time in years, she had created joy for someone else without any expectation of return. The feeling was better than any expensive purchase or business achievement she had ever experienced. The simple act of giving flowers had opened a door to something neither woman had expected to find. A genuine connection that transcended their different backgrounds and brought them together in the most beautiful way possible. Maria carefully set the beautiful bouquet on the counter behind her, treating it like the most precious treasure in the world. Her hands were still shaking slightly from the overwhelming emotions of the past few minutes. She looked at Isabella with new eyes, seeing not just an elegantly dressed customer, but someone who had given her an unexpected gift of recognition and love. Would you mind sitting with me for a few minutes? Maria asked, her voice still thick with emotion. My break is coming up and I'd like to know more about the person who just made my whole year. Isabella nodded, feeling drawn to this woman who had touched something deep in her heart. They found a quiet booth in the corner where they could talk without the busy lunch rush surrounding them. As they sat across from each other, the differences in their backgrounds seemed to fade away, replaced by a connection that felt surprisingly natural. Maria's supervisor, an older woman named Joyce, approached their table, with understanding in her eyes. She had witnessed the flower exchange and could see how much it meant to Maria. "Take your time, honey," Joyce said gently, patting Maria's shoulder. "The lunch crowd is slowing down anyway." Once they were alone, Maria leaned forward slightly, her eyes still bright with unshed tears. "I need you to know something, Isabella. I've been working here for 8 years and most days I feel invisible. People order their food, eat quickly, and leave. They're not unkind, but they don't really see me as a person with feelings and dreams and worries." Isabella listened intently, recognizing that feeling of invisibility despite coming from such different circumstances. "I understand that more than you might think," she said softly. Maria tilted her head curiously. "How could someone like you understand feeling invisible? You're so put together, so confident." Isabella looked down at her hands, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes having money makes you even more invisible. People see the clothes and the car, but they don't see the person inside. They want things from you, but they don't want to know you." She paused, surprised by her own honesty. "My father and I live in the same house, but we haven't had a real conversation in months. He's always working, always busy with deals and meetings." Maria's expression softened with sympathy. "That sounds lonely." "It is," Isabella admitted. "After my mother died, he threw himself into work like it could somehow fill the empty space she left behind. I think he's afraid that if he slows down, the grief will catch up with him." Maria reached across the table and gently touched Isabella's hand. The gesture was simple but filled with the kind of maternal comfort that Isabella hadn't felt in years. "Grief is strange," Maria said quietly. "When my husband left 5 years ago, I thought I would drown in the sadness. But I had to keep going, for Miguel and Sofia. Work became my way of staying strong." "Your husband left?" Isabella asked, surprised by this revelation. Maria nodded, her eyes growing distant. "He said he felt trapped by responsibility. One day he was there, helping with homework and complaining about the bills, and the next day he was gone. Left a note saying he needed to find himself." She let out a small, sad laugh. Miguel was 14 and Sofia was 19. They needed their father, but he decided his freedom was more important. Isabella felt a surge of anger toward this man she had never met. How could anyone abandon a family like that? How could he leave Maria to raise 2 children alone while working multiple jobs? "I'm so sorry," Isabella said, meaning every word. "That must have been incredibly difficult." "It was," Maria admitted. "But you know what I learned? Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who disappoint you the deepest. And sometimes complete strangers show you more kindness than family ever did." As if summoned by their conversation, Maria's phone buzzed with a text message. Her face lit up as she read it, and she quickly showed the screen to Isabella. It was a message from Miguel. "Happy Mother's Day, Mama. Can't wait to see you this summer. Love you." "He's studying engineering at a university in San Diego," Maria said, pride evident in her voice. "Full scholarship. He's so smart, Isabella. Sometimes I can't believe I helped raise someone so brilliant." Isabella smiled at Maria's obvious love for her son. "He sounds amazing." "What about Sofia?" Maria's expression grew more complex, mixing pride with worry. "Sofia is my warrior. She joined the military right after high school, said she wanted to serve her country and help people. She's a medic now, stationed in Germany. She's saving lives, but I worry about her every single day." Isabella could see the weight Maria carried, loving children who were following their dreams far from home. It must be so hard having them both so far away. "The hardest part," Maria said, her voice breaking slightly, "is holidays like today. I'm so proud of who they've become, but I miss the simple things, making pancakes on Sunday mornings, helping with homework, even the arguments about curfew and chores." She laughed through her tears. "I never thought I'd miss being the mean mom who made them clean their rooms." Isabella found herself thinking about her own relationship with her father. They lived in the same house but felt further apart than Maria and her children across continents. At least Maria's distance from her kids came from love and support for their dreams. Isabella's distance from her father came from emotional walls that seemed impossible to break down. "Do you think," Isabella asked hesitantly, "that people can learn to connect again after they've grown apart? Even after years of not really talking?" Maria studied Isabella's face, seeing the vulnerability behind the question. "I think people can always find their way back to each other if they both want it enough. But sometimes one person has to be brave enough to take the first step." Their conversation was interrupted by Joyce approaching their table again. "Maria, honey, I hate to interrupt, but table 6 is asking for you specifically. They've been coming here for months and always request your section." Maria nodded and started to stand, but then turned back to Isabella. "Would you mind waiting just a few more minutes? I feel like we're just getting to know each other and I don't want this conversation to end." Isabella felt the same way. "Of course, I'll wait as long as you need." As Maria went back to work, Isabella watched her interact with the elderly couple at table 6. Even after their emotional conversation, even after receiving flowers that had moved her to tears, Maria gave these customers the same warm, attentive service she provided everyone. She listened to their stories, laughed at their jokes, and made sure their meal was exactly what they wanted. Isabella realized that Maria's kindness wasn't an act, or something she turned on and off depending on her mood. It was simply who she was, someone who found joy in taking care of others even when her own heart was missing the people she loved most. Sitting in that booth, watching Maria work, Isabella felt something shifting inside her. This woman had shown her what genuine care looked like, what it meant to create family wherever you went. For the first time in years, Isabella felt like she had found something real and meaningful. She knew this encounter was changing her in ways she was only beginning to understand. As the afternoon sun began to cast longer shadows through the diner windows, Isabella knew she would eventually have to leave. But something had changed during her time with Maria. The loneliness that had been her constant companion for years felt lighter somehow, replaced by a warmth she hadn't experienced since her mother was alive. Maria returned to their table after, taking care of her customers, carrying 2 cups of coffee, and wearing a smile that seemed to glow from within. "On the house," she said, setting down Isabella's cup. "It's the least I can do for someone who gave me the most beautiful Mother's Day gift I've ever received." Isabella accepted the coffee gratefully, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "Maria, can I ask you something? How do you do it? How do you stay so positive and caring when you've been through so much pain?" Maria thought for a moment, stirring sugar into her coffee. "You know, I used to think that bad things happening to you made you bitter or hard. When my husband left, I was angry for a long time. I felt like life was unfair, like I had been cheated, somehow." "What changed?" Isabella asked, genuinely curious. "My children," Maria said simply. "I realized that if I became bitter and closed off, I would be teaching them that love wasn't worth the risk. I wanted them to see that even when people hurt you, even when life gets difficult, there's still goodness in the world worth fighting for." Isabella nodded, understanding more than she had expected. "My father did the opposite. When my mother died, he shut down completely. I think he was trying to protect himself from ever being hurt like that again." "And what did that teach you?" Maria asked gently. Isabella paused, never having thought about it that way before. "I guess it taught me that loving someone meant eventually losing them. So maybe it was safer not to get too close to anyone." Maria leaned forward, her eyes filled with compassion. "But look at what happened here today. You took a risk with a complete stranger, and it created something beautiful. Maybe it's time to take that same risk with your father." Before Isabella could respond, Maria's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face lit up with joy. "It's Sophia," she exclaimed. "My daughter is calling from Germany." Isabella started to stand, thinking Maria would want privacy for the call, but Maria gently touched her arm. "Stay, please. I want you to meet her, even if it's just for a second." Maria answered the phone, and immediately her whole demeanor changed. The tired waitress disappeared, replaced by a mother whose love for her child was evident in every word. "Sophia, mi amor, happy Mother's Day to you too, sweetheart." Isabella could hear the young woman's voice through the phone, speaking in rapid Spanish mixed with English, clearly excited to talk to her mother. Maria's eyes filled with happy tears as she listened to her daughter's news about her work, her friends, and how much she missed home. "Wait, mija," Maria said, switching to English. "I want you to meet someone very special." She turned the phone toward Isabella. "This is Isabella. She gave me the most beautiful flowers today and reminded me how blessed I am." Isabella felt nervous talking to this young woman she had only heard about, but Sophia's warm voice immediately put her at ease. "Thank you so much for taking care of my mom today," Sophia said, her voice carrying the same kindness that Maria showed everyone. "She works so hard and deserves all the love in the world." "Your mother is an amazing woman," Isabella replied, meaning every word. "You should be very proud of her." "I am," Sophia said firmly, "every single day." After a few more minutes of conversation, Maria reluctantly ended the call, promising to send photos of the flowers and to call again soon. She sat quietly for a moment, just absorbing the joy of hearing her daughter's voice. "She sounds wonderful," Isabella said. "She is," Maria agreed. "Both my children are. And you know what the funny thing is? Even though they're far away, even though I miss them terribly, I feel closer to them than ever. When they were teenagers living at home, we argued all the time. Now that they're adults following their dreams, we actually talk about real things." Isabella thought about this, wondering if distance might actually help her relationship with her father too. Maybe they were too close physically to see each other clearly. As the diner began to empty out, Joyce approached their table one more time. "Maria, why don't you take the rest of the day off? It's Mother's Day and you've been here since 6 this morning." Maria looked surprised. "Are you sure? I don't want to leave you short-staffed." "We'll be fine," Joyce insisted. "Go home. Put those beautiful flowers in water and enjoy your day." Maria looked at Isabella, suddenly seeming uncertain. Would you maybe want to come to my apartment for a while? I know we just met, but I feel like I've known you for years, and I don't really want this day to end yet." Isabella felt a warmth spread through her chest. When was the last time someone had invited her somewhere just because they enjoyed her company? "I would love that," she said honestly. They gathered their things, Maria carefully cradling the bouquet of roses. As they walked toward the exit, several customers called out goodbye to Maria, thanking her for another wonderful meal and excellent service. Isabella could see how much these people cared about Maria, how she had become an important part of their lives just by being herself. Maria's apartment was a short walk from the diner, in a modest building that had seen better days but was well-maintained and welcoming. Her small home was filled with photographs of Miguel and Sofia at various ages, their achievements and milestones covering every available surface. "This is my pride and joy," Maria said, gesturing to a wall covered with school awards, graduation photos, and letters from her children. "Everything I've worked for is right here." Isabella studied the photos, seeing the progression from cute toddlers to accomplished young adults. In every image, the love between Maria and her children was obvious. "They're lucky to have you as their mother." "No," Maria said, carefully placing the roses in a beautiful vase on her kitchen table. "I'm lucky to have them. They taught me what real love looks like, the kind that doesn't try to control or possess but supports and celebrates." As evening approached, Isabella knew she needed to head home. But as they said goodbye, she realized something important had happened. For the first time in years, she had experienced genuine friendship. She had connected with another person not because of what she could offer them, but simply because of who she was. "Maria," Isabella said as they hugged goodbye, "thank you for today, for accepting the flowers, for sharing your story, for reminding me what kindness looks like." "Thank you for seeing me," Maria replied, tears in her eyes again, "for making me feel valued and appreciated. You gave me more than flowers today, you gave me hope." Walking back to her car, Isabella felt different than she had in years. The simple act of giving flowers to a stranger had opened her heart in ways she hadn't expected. She thought about Maria's words about taking risks with love, about her advice regarding her father. As she drove home to her empty mansion, Isabella made a decision. Tomorrow she would call her father, not to discuss business or schedules, but to really talk. To take the same risk with him that she had taken with Maria today. The flowers had been just the beginning. The real gift was the connection they had created, a reminder that love and kindness could bridge any gap, heal any wound, and transform any heart willing to stay open.